The sermon that Chip gave me for today is also based on our gospel lesson, Matthew 2, 1 through 12. A number of years ago, a pastor wrote about some of his childhood memories. One that really stood out was this. The one memory that really stood out for me was that the kids at his school learned that he was a PK, or preacher's kid. I remember times when guys, mostly bigger, would cunningly try to force money from me, forcefully asking for a quarter. Since I rarely had extra money, I would say, "I don't have an extra quarter." The request then would drop to a dime, still prompting a polite, "I don't have an extra dime." At this point, I would immediately hear a tirade concerning my lack of unwillingness to give, and on top of that came a veiled threat of something terrible happening to me in the future because of it. What? You're not going to give me a dime? Okay, I'm going to remember that, you little punk. This was, of course, done in the presence of my friends and done in a threatening manner, with the strategy being that next time they asked, I would give in to their demands and receive another guilt-intended or physically threatening word. Ultimately, it just made me avoid them and go another way. Now, as a kid myself and even into adulthood, I have seen this contest played out many times with others. Sadly, cunning wins most times. The Christian call and character trait of giving of ourselves is taken advantage of by those who know how we are supposed to respond. Excuse me. As an adult, the same is true. There are people of great cunning who attempt to use our kindness and desire to do good against us for their own selfish profit and sneaky motives. King Herod the Great tried to use the kindness of the wise men against them to get Jesus so that he might kill him. He heard the news that the Magi had come from the east to see the one who had been born King of the Jews, and this news greatly disturbed King Herod. He called all the chief priests and scribes of the people and asked where this child was to be born. And when they said when they said Bethlehem, he then met secretly with the wise men who were Zoroastrian priests. Herod, inquiring of the exact time the star appeared, asked them to go to Bethlehem and make a careful search, and then to come back and tell him where that child could be found so that he could go and pay homage to him. Now you might imagine the kindness and sweetness of his voice with which King Herod made this request. In his eyes may have been the effect of sincerity, maybe even a false tear. Evil is a great actor, and this Herod was cunning indeed and cruel. He was ruthless in his need for power and control and destroyed any perceived threat to his rule. He murdered his wife, three of his 6 sons, and his mother-in-law, brother-in-law, uncle, and many others. He was set on protecting his throne for himself and the surviving 3 sons, and they all became rulers. After the wise men visited Jesus, they were warned in a dream not to go back to Herod, and they went back to their country by another way. It is interesting that the Bible says, and having been warned in a dream, it seems these men were given a shared vision, which powerfully demonstrates God's ability to get through to us. There was agreement, and instead of going back to Herod, they went back to their country by another way. After Herod realized he'd been outwitted, he became furious and had all the boys in Bethlehem and the surrounding area who were 2 years old or younger killed. But Jesus was unharmed because Joseph obeyed directions to escape to Egypt given to him in a dream. So because of 2 dreams and obedience to God, who gave the dreams, we are here today. Because Joseph followed his dream and became the wise men, obeyed and followed and shared their dream, God has given them. Jesus survived. It must be remembered that Jesus was a human being and could have been killed along with the other children. When we follow the leading of the Spirit, our dreams truly can come true. In addition, God's dreams for us benefit not only ourselves, but also others. We do not always get to know who or how, but we can have a feeling of peace, trusting that God is in control. Have you ever felt the leading of the Spirit and didn't follow it, only to find out later you had missed out on a blessing or could have prevented someone from doing harm to themselves or someone else? Has anyone ever told you, don't go down that road, go another way? Whatever brought you to Jesus probably sent you out in a different direction. You did not go back to your life the same way, but were sent on a different path. You didn't go back to Herod that wanted to kill the Christ in you. When we come to Christ, God will direct our path. We are pointed in the direction of life and are steered away from that which seeks to destroy us, along with the God in us. There are a lot of Herods among us today, those would-be tyrants that seek power and reign in our lives. These cruel and dangerous rulers range from life-draining addictions to joy-stealing isms, workaholicism, racism, consumerism, and etc. But when we make the long journey to Christ and worship Him, as the wise men did, and when we open ourselves and give Jesus the treasure of our hearts, whether it be our most precious pains, heartaches, worries, fears, or hopes and dreams, He will send us away in a new direction. Christ will impart a new dream for our life and give us wisdom for the road ahead, that we might safely travel in the direction of His leading and divine direction. Dear people, there is no better road. Amen.